Welcome to the Bernadette Jackson Podcast, where we are redefining how the world views women with daddy issues by discussing topics, sharing stories, and gaining insight, all from the perspective of a fatherless daughter. I'm your host, Bernadette of BernadetteJackson.com. Today is the first episode in season 2, and I am super excited to be back. We have a special interview today, and it is going to be the first in my series called Storytime, where we will be bringing on fatherless daughters who have been intentional about their healing and just talking to them about how that journey has been. So today we have with us Lacy Fields. She is a teen mom turned transition catalyst, and she is better known as the course mentor. She's created her own award-winning mentoring program, You Go Girl, in her basement in 2011. Lacy has years of experience not only talking the talk, but walking the walk in theory and application. This includes years of mentoring teen girls, designing youth curriculum, and helping women design their own curricula. Lacy is now using her curriculum design skills to help purpose-driven women create transformational courses using their unique story. Equipped with her own story of triumph over trauma, Lacy has not let her past stand in her way, but is using it as a stepping stone. She's earned degrees and certificates in the fields of marketing, human services, coaching, holistic therapies, and is currently completing her courses in clinical mental health. Covering the gamut from experience to education, all the way to inspired faith-backed action, Lacy is more than prepared to complete her mission of helping women use their stories to transform lives. Lacy, I am super excited that you're here. I cannot wait to talk to you more.
So thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. So tell me, what is one thing that you can't wait to do when the pandemic is over?
I guess just go places with my mask off because I've been doing things with my mask on. So, it's nothing I can't wait to do. I guess like hug strangers maybe.
Yeah.
That's something that you can't do right now.
That's so true. So are you typically a hugger? Do you like to engage in that way with people?
I'm that person that people walk up and tell their whole life story to in the grocery store.
Ah.
So, so not being able to embrace the fact that they have spilled the beans has, been like a little awkward moment. Like, all right, then you have a good day.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely get that. For me, I think maybe the first thing that I'm looking forward to doing is really sitting in a restaurant and having like a nice meal with some friends. I haven't done that lately, or even had like a game night at my friend's house. That I've been really missing. So I think that's probably the first thing I'm going to do when the pandemic is over.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So why don't you let me know what your father loss type is? Was he absent, deceased, or physically there and emotionally unavailable?
Totally absent. I would have to say it would be absent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
What
so,
are the...
Go ahead.
Go on, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, ironically, my very first two memories are of my father. I had to be like 2 years old because the first one is my mom is pregnant, and me and my sister are 23 months apart. And I remember him giving my mom money to go buy a Red Datsun. My mom is always like, "How do you remember that?"
Yeah.
I remember that day, and I remember the look in my father's eyes was like, I'm going to do whatever I can, for you. And it was a very loving look that I remember. And the second memory was him being thrown on a police car. But my baby sister was on the couch. So, she had to have been born. So that had to be a couple months from the first memory. And the look in his eyes then was, I tried, My father and mother had a tumultuous relationship. I would say that it was abusive, but I know that it was kind of coming from both ends. And And so that was the last time I see my dad. So I had at 2 years old.
Wow, that is really something. I know that that had to have definitely affected you in some ways. So, what are some of the ways that your father loss has affected you both emotionally and in relationships?
For me, I had a lot of male mentors, which is why I want to mentor girls because all I had was men. People thinking like, oh, you know, her dad isn't around. That's the problem. But I believe that the look that I received from my father was that he did love me. So I didn't have any feelings like my father just left me and didn't love me at all. Um, so to me, it wasn't like growing up, I didn't see him not being there as an issue because I knew the dynamics of my mom and that relationship, and they were married.
Mm.
Since I knew the dynamics of their relationship, I knew that that wasn't a healthy situation. And so to me, I was spared growing up in an unhealthy household in that manner, like having to see my mother being abused and things like that. So to me, in my personal situation, I was spared of having to witness that type of lifestyle. And so growing up, I looked to my male mentors as father figures. My grandfather was my father figure, and then my great grandfather was a father figure. Um, but to me, I believe the absence of a male in my home, I didn't see a man love my mom.
Okay.
Right. And so I believe that kind of creates the chain for single motherhood. Because you don't know what it's like to see a man like lovingly doing things for your mother. So you don't know how to accept a man doing lovingly things for you in your household.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. My mom was also a single mom as well. And I feel like it did definitely create in me the feeling that I had to do everything on my own. And, just adding to that, that my father wasn't there, it absolutely did affect how I viewed relationships or how I showed up. So I remember the moment that I decided that I had had enough of experiencing failed relationships and just like operating in the limits of just being a fatherless daughter. And I call it my coming to Jesus moment. So did you have like a coming to Jesus moment as well, where you felt like, you don't want to be affected by this childhood trauma anymore, and that, you want to start to heal, you want to start to really be intentional about how you're showing up? Do you have one of those moments?
Girl, I got 55 of them. Which one? Because, here's the thing. And then to any, fathers out there who are listening to this conversation, I think that it's very important to know who you leave your children with. I still experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse in my household. And a lot of my issues came from the person who raised me, not from the person who wasn't there. So my come to Jesus moment was, actually when I got pregnant at 17, and I just remember saying, I don't want to be like my mom and my sister, and I got to do this by myself. I just really didn't want to, and I was like, the least I could do is allow a man to stay and love his child for as long as he can.
Yeah.
That was kind of like my first come to Jesus moment with my son. Even though he wasn't per se the person that I would want my son to grow up and be like, but I just didn't want to create a cycle of men just being totally absent. And then with my daughter, I did the same thing. I said, okay, well, that didn't work out, but I'm not going to stand in the way of the relationship. I'm not going to allow any distaste I have for this man to affect the relationship that he can have with his daughter. And I began kind of cultivating the relationship in a way. And then I was like, okay, now I'm done. Let me give them the boundaries to finish doing this work themselves. And they have an amazing relationship. And my daughter's 15, and me and her father haven't been together in 10 years. So it's like each come to Jesus moment I've had has been something to affect my children. And then to say, okay, if anything I wish I had was a man in the house, that so my children can see that. And I was like, okay, it's time to let love in while my daughter is still home so that she understands it. Even though my daughter is like a hopeless romantic. Thank God, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness. She's a hopeless romantic, and she wants the marriage and this and that, and she has some great examples from her aunts, which is something that I didn't get in the way of that either. So I think my main come to Jesus moment was just to allow my children to experience what I didn't.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like, it's really important, especially like as we grow up, there's a lot of things that we can be intentional about doing differently for our kids so that they don't have the same experiences. So with that regard, what was the first thing that you did to kind of secure that that your children were going to have a different experience? I know you said that you didn't want to have like multiple people in and out of your home, and you absolutely wanted to make sure that your children had a relationship with their father. But was there anything that you did that might have been like super intentional where you knew that doing this was going to make sure that your kids had a different lived experience than you did?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things I did, like you mentioned, yeah, I didn't date. My children probably thought that I was a lesbian for a while or something. I'm not sure. They get of age and then they're like, wait a minute, my mom, I don't know, because I didn't have men come over at all, at all, at all. And that was a thing for me to protect their eyes and their image of what they see in the home. If it wasn't going to be a loving experience, it wasn't happening in my house. The other thing was I moved them into an environment where a single mom was the rarity. I believe that so many times, it's like all of my friends that I grew up with, we lived in a neighborhood where everybody was a single mom. It was rare that your dad lived there. It's like, girl, you got a dad? Really? And I didn't want that to be the norm, even in the neighborhood for my children. So I didn't mind. And people were like, wow, you let your kids sleep out? I was like, yeah, because, the things that they don't see in my home, I want them to experience the normalcies of what a married life looks like, of what a two-parent household looks like, and allow them to experience those things. So that would be like the couple of things that that I did for my kids.
That's awesome. I really love that. Because honestly, I think that a lot of times single parents, because they're single parents, they really want to have like that tight grip on their children. They don't know that sometimes that type of hold can kind of hinder their growth and really being able to experience the type of things that would help them to be different than we were or have different experiences. So I love that you were so intentional about that.
Yes, I was. Still am.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, a process. Parenting never ends. So definitely.
I know. I don't know who started the rumor about when they're 18 and all that, because I got a 20-year-old in here. You know what I mean? He's not even done college yet. So who said you stop at 18? I don't
Right.
know. That was
I
wrong.
don't know who said that.
That was wrong. So wrong.
Definitely. So, because father loss is a trauma that affects us relationally, there's a lot of areas of healing that will happen during healthy relationships. For you, how has being in a relationship helped you to heal or in your healing journey?
I would probably say the one that I'm in now, because I wasn't in one for so long. But I was the girl who was the girlfriend. It was like, oh, if you see me with somebody, we was together, and we would probably be together for a long time. Um, but I knew what I wanted and what I didn't want, and you know that was why I went on a whole little celibacy kick and things like that. But the relationship that I'm in now is the one where I'm committed to being intentional about letting love in,
Yeah.
right? Because that is something that I don't think I was doing before, because I was so um, like defensive. It's so funny because I was playing chess. My current friend was teaching me how to play chess, the guy I'm with now. And because I get a little obsessive about things because I'm competitive, so I didn't want to learn how to play chess. Like, I didn't. I was like, I'm cool in that game because I can't be living my life like that, So
Yeah.
he's teaching me. He was like, "You're so defensive. You're holding on to protecting everything that you don't even want to let a pawn go. He was like, "You're doing a great job at defending everything, but you have to get offensive, and start letting some things go on the outside, and then that's how, in turn, you'll be able to protect what you hold dear." And when he said that to me, I was like, "Am I living my life like this?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Am I living my life like this?" And he looked and he was like, "We are not having Dr. Phil moments right now."
But I mean, what he said was a word, though. That was a word.
An entire word.
Yeah.
And he really was talking about the game. I was like, "This is more than chess. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
I need to unpack this. What is going on?" And I believe that was how I was looking at things, right? So I was being very intentional about protecting my children, not letting them see certain things, making sure I wasn't in an unhealthy relationship, and worried about all the things that I needed to protect myself from or be defensive.
Yeah.
I wasn't just saying, "Let this happen so I can see what happens next."
Mm-hmm.
I know what I hold in my heart, but everything else is beyond my control. And it was literally, I think I pondered about what he said about the chess game. And then literally, I believe the relationship flourished because I let go, like, of certain things, like, when you can come to my house. I was like, I believe I've been too defensive, and that's not serving me. And so I started letting go and being open to whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And staying true to the certain beliefs that I wanted to hold on to. It was so good.
That is so good. In my group coaching program, Her Way, there's a term that I coined called fatherless daughter trigger points. And it is like 17 or 18 different things that are very common with fatherless daughters. And one of them is the desire to control a situation. And it just sounds like what you were saying, because it was a lot about our trauma that we were unable to control. So anything that's within our grasp to control, we really hold on to that so tightly. And so, like, I'm just listening to your story and I'm like, this mirrors so many of the women that I speak to about how, like, they're just not really used to being in a situation where they let things flow. Like, just the act of being able to control the environment really feels secure to them and helps them to feel safe. And that, in a lot of times, is really what a lot of us are looking for in relationships. So it's really interesting that he was able to relay such a word to you in a chess game that kind of like was able to just like open up your thinking about how you've been showing up in your relationship. So that is awesome.
Yeah, and I believe, I didn't have any brothers either, so I didn't have anybody to protect me growing up. And I believe that may be like a really big factor, because when you have a dad or, big brothers or close uncles, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to go tell my uncle. Oh, I'm going to go tell my brother."
Yes.
You have somebody to kind of, I was like the brother out of me and my sisters. Like, if something happened, you came and got me, you know what I mean? So I was always on guard. I was always very defensive, and like you said, having to control the situation so that I come out the winner in some way, because there wasn't anybody behind me that I could call on to protect me. And I believe that is one of the, if anything about being a fatherless daughter, it would be the lack of protection, or that lack of feeling protected.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If it's one thing that I think we crave more than anything else, it's to feel chosen by our loved ones and to feel that we are safe in every possible area when we're in relationships. And it's just something that I really encourage people to be more intentional about. Anytime you know that you're with a fatherless daughter or you have a friend or something, like, that's the thing that you really need to be intentional about doing, is just making sure that she feels secure and she feels safe with you, because we just did not have that. So one of the exercises that I like to do with my clients is just to map out their FDR story. And FDRs are fear-based responses. And it's a term that I've coined that really is like a sequence of responses that we launch into when we fear that we've been like triggered by an event in a relationship. So it can be like an argument or maybe something your partner said or something like that. And it's usually based on the story that we tell ourselves about how our father was absent or why he was absent. So if you have blamed yourself because he wasn't there, or you feel like maybe you could have done more, or whatever it is, sometimes those internal narratives really kind of inform how we show up or how we respond to fear. So since you've been in this relationship, what are some of the fear-based responses that you had to unlearn?
I'm trying to think if to have it be directed towards what you stated. For me, I believe it would have to be the defense and the control. And,
Right.
That probably would be it. And I don't argue with people. Yeah, we ain't gonna argue. I'll be like, well, I'll talk to you when you have your little feelings in check. You want to write down how you feel right now? And people hate it, but that knowing that I may have, triggers, or you just knowing the history of my parents' relationship, I'm not going there with anybody. No, I'm not going there with any man. Like, I'm like 5'3", it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not putting myself in that situation. But for me, because I think my mom made the best decision by not having us in that environment. So I don't date people who are hotheads, or if I see like a trigger, I'm out, because I don't want to put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
So, the guy I'm with, he's like super laid back, really cool. I mean, he delivers words over chess games. You know what I mean? So it's not like we haven't had any arguments or anything to kind of reference. And even in my past relationships, I believe. I'm trying to think. The only thing for me would be like abuse would be a trigger for me. If I think that you're going to be physically abusive, that's a trigger for me. But it's not a trigger for me to cower. It's a trigger for me to be like, what can I get that's going to take him down? It's that type of trigger. So that's unhealthy. So I make sure I'm not in that type of situation. But that would be kind of like the only trigger for me. That would be remnant to my father.
Okay.
Or what I know of him.
Right. That's good. So what about your lived experience has influenced what you do now in terms of your line of work, how you parent, or in any other way?
Oh, honey, yeah. Like, I've been through the gamut, even though, I'm like, well, Dad, if my dad was here, would these things have happened to me? If it was somebody there to protect me, if it was somebody that they'd be like, oh, her dad her dad crazy, he gonna come in with a machete or something.
Right.
Would the abuse have happened? So I think about those things, and it's like, but do we place all the blame on the person who wasn't there, or is the person who was there to assume some responsibility or to warn? Because I believe as women, it definitely is our responsibility to warn our girls and to not send them into the world naive, or not knowing the dangers that can happen. It's kind of like, oh, doop. You just kind of walk around and like, ma'am, if you would have just warned me or told me, I think I would have been a little more prepared for this.
Yes.
So I am a really big advocate on, women being the ones to definitely step up, number one, and mentor girls, and to be equipped to talk to them about real life things to prepare us. Because no matter if a man could tell you anything, he's going to tell you things from his experience, and it's up to women to definitely be the ones to educate and to prepare other girls for womanhood.
Yes.
And I believe that that's what's missing, and that's totally, my life mission is to get more women equipped to have conversations and to mentor girls.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like mentorship is so important, especially when we are in a situation where you don't have both parents in the home and you'll likely be missing some information or some perspective around that. Mentorship really does fill in the gaps so much when we have situations like that. So I really love that. I do. I like to end off all of my interviews with Bernadette's Quick Five. It's 5 questions, and you have about 5 seconds to think about your response. And all of your answers can be in 5 minutes or less. Don't worry, there's no wrong answers. You ready?
5 minutes is a long time. Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's the 5 questions in 5 minutes. You don't have to answer them in that moment. So, you ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right. What's the number one thing you think people get wrong about fatherless daughters?
Oh, the number one thing. I would say that, a lot of people think that fatherless daughters are promiscuous.
Okay. What's one thing that you believe that you're better at because you're a fatherless daughter?
Fighting. I had to protect myself. It was thank you, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I hear you. What is one book that you've read that has really improved your relationships with others?
Oh, I've read so many books. Okay, so when it comes to books that I read about improving relationships, I can't think of the author, but the name of the book is The People Factor. And that really helped me kind of put people in their place in my life and understand how relationships work cyclically. Is that how I say that? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you say that.
And that was a really good book for me. So yeah, relationships, people, The People Factor.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds good. And the last question is, or second to last question, what would you like to be known or remembered for?
Changing the world for girls.
Awesome. And last question is fill in the blank. My name is blank and my fatherlessness does not define me because...
My name is Lacy Fields and my fatherless does not define me because I know that I have a Father in heaven, God, who is paving the way for me here on earth.
Amen. I love that. Lacy, it was such a pleasure talking to you today. Where can people find you?
Yes, so you can find me at dearyounggirl.com and also at Lacy on Purpose on Instagram.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me today, Lacy. It was a pleasure.
This was so good.
Thank you.
So that was my interview with Lacy Fields. I enjoyed that interview so much. I am looking forward to doing more of this series, and I have some really wonderful women that are lined up. So you're going to be hearing more of story time. And this episode is the first of many that we have like this. If you are interested in the book that Lacy mentioned, it is called The People Factor, How Building Great Relationships and Ending Bad Ones Unlocks Your God-Given Purpose. So that was the full title of the book. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.